Hi everyone, this is the first video of the series that is implementing a CRUD sample using Angular 4 to consume the GraphQL endpoint. Okay, so in this series of video, we will use Angular 14, okay, and Angular GraphQL client like Apollo Angular 3, okay, and we are going to configure fake Json server for GraphQL endpoint and we will implement the sample CRUD. Okay, let's jump into creating the sample Angular 14 application. And the command for creating the Angular project is ng space new space name of your project. So let's create the project. And Angular CLI asks us whether to create the routing or not. Say yes, because I am going to implement the sample using lazy loading module. Okay, and I simply select the CSS files for my styling. Our Angular project created successfully. Let me open the project in Visual Studio Code Editor. Here is my project, and if you go to package.json, you can observe the version of our Angular. Okay, it is 14. Now, what I will do, I am going to install the bootstrap into my application. Okay, so go to bootstrap.com, and if you scroll down on the home page, you can see the latest version, that is 5.20 beta version. Okay, copy that command and open the terminal. Run the bootstrap installation. Okay, package is installed successfully. Let's first run our Angular application. Okay, so command is ng serve, and we can access our Angular application at port number 4200. So by default, you can see a UI like this. So what I will do, I am going to replace this static HTML and I am going to add the bootstrap navbar. For that, go to bootstrap, go to docs and go for the components and look for navbar component. So here, let me search for a navbar. Okay, I want to add this blue color. Okay, primary color. Let me copy this tag. And in my application, now let's go to app component.html, and this is the static content we have seen previously. So let's replace this and add here our navbar component, and inside of it let's add some container, fluid container, okay, and the navbar brand, okay, and I will brand like, sorry, it's not a tag, a class, navbar brand, and I will name my menu like, in this demo I am going to do a simple CRUD operation on fruits, so I will name it like fruits basket. Okay, if we go to our application, okay, so nothing was loaded here. Never remove this. That is because we installed bootstrap but we haven't configured it in our angular.json file. So go to angular.json file. Here we have to register our bootstrap CSS and JS references. Okay, so here in the styles array, min.css, same way we have to register JS file also. Okay, so for that, min.js. Okay. Now, if I go to our Angular application, I must see. Okay. Okay. Just rerun our application again. And now we can see the bootstrap navbar rendering. Okay. Now, for consuming the GraphQL endpoints, normal Ajax call or HTTP client we cannot use. We have to use a library for Angular, that is Apollo Angular library. So you can search like Angular GraphQL. In the first results itself, you can see the apollo-angular.com. Okay, so this is the library we are going to use to consume the GraphQL endpoints. Okay, so in this introduction of the getting started, go to getting started. Here is the command. Just add this, run this ng add apollo angular. Okay, copy this command and run here. Okay, while installing, it is showing that it is unable to find the Apollo-Angular and it is like to install the version 3 of the Apollo Angular. Say yes. And here it is expecting the GraphQL endpoint URL. Till now we haven't set up our GraphQL endpoint, right? Let's skip by clicking the enter button. And version also you can click enter. Okay, package is installed successfully and you can see one new file is created in the app folder, that is graphql.module.ts. Okay, so let's go to that file. So here you can see all the required configurations for consuming the Apollo modules and services are set up in this file. Only thing we have to do is in this constant here empty string is there, right? URA. We have to provide our GraphQL endpoint. Okay, and this will be loaded into the app module as well, I believe. GraphQL module. Okay, the thing is only setup required is we need to pass the URL. Okay, in the next we are going to set up the JSON server for GraphQL endpoint, which is a fake one in our local machine. And now we are going to set up the JSON server GraphQL endpoint in my local machine. Okay, for that search like JSON server GraphQL. Okay, either you can go for npm link or you can directly go for the GitHub link. Okay, so using this fake server, we are able to set up a fake GraphQL endpoint in our local machine. Okay, so for this, first step is this one command. Okay, the command is npm install. The command is npm install -g globally json -graphql -server. Okay, you need to install it in your system. Just open the command prompt anywhere, paste it and run the command. Since I have already set up or installed this command, I am not going to do now. But please make sure to install this command. Once that is done, okay, what we have to do means we need to create a db.json file, db.js file. Okay, db.js file. So what I will do, I will set up that uh, db.js file within my Angular application. Okay, so in real time, we no need this fake server, right? We will have real server. So we no need to configure all these things. Okay, so what I will do here inside of here, okay, in the root folder outside of the src, you can add db.js. Okay, to this db.js, we can use module.exports, okay, and it will contain an array, and inside of it we can create another set of array, okay. Each object here we are looking, right, that will be one endpoint, okay. Since I want to implement regarding the fruit basket, right, so I'm going to use fruits, okay. Sorry, GraphQL doesn't contain multiple endpoints, okay, it will contain single endpoint, but these are like our database store, okay. So initial data you can configure here, okay, uh, so that schema will generate automatically based on the type of object structure here we define, okay. So here I will just add a one object, one record, like I want ID, okay, name is another property, okay, mango, fruits colon only, right? Sorry, it is not array, it should be an object to the modules, okay. Yeah, now it is good. And another property, quantity, okay, either kgs or count, you can think like that, and price, okay, $100. Okay, this is my default record, okay. Now there is a command to run the GraphQL server, okay. We have installed JSON server locally, but we have to start that server, right? There is one more command to start the server, that is this one. Okay, json-graphql server.db.json file. So if you run this command, it will run GraphQL under the port number 30. Okay, based on this data, GraphQL will generate schema. If you don't know GraphQL, GraphQL generally depends upon the schema, and GraphQL mainly contains two operations like query and mutation. Query means fetching the data from the server. Mutation means changing the data at the server, like save or update or delete. Okay, all those comes under mutation. The fetching data will be the uh, query. Okay, so now what I will do, copy this command. I will create a one normal command in my package.json. Okay, so I will name my command like GQL, okay, server, and paste the original command. Now what I will do, I will use this script tag for run my command. So let's run the uh, GraphQL server. Okay, so to run it, npm, let's clear it, npm run, and name of the script tag we have added, GQL-server. Okay, I haven't saved the script file, save it and rerun it again. Okay, now it's trying to start the GraphQL server. Sorry, I have added db.js inside of the app folder. Okay, it is searching in the root folder. Let's bring it to root folder. Sorry for that. It should be outside of the src. Okay, okay, db.js outside of the src. Now let's run the command again. Now it should start. Yes, server is running. Now copy this endpoint and open it in the browser. Okay, once you open the GraphQL endpoint, you can see some HTML, like some tool. So this tool is nothing but playground for requesting the GraphQL endpoint. Okay, this is like a postman. In normal REST API, we use postman, right? for testing the APIs. Same way, we can use this tool for testing the GraphQL endpoint. Okay, so I have already added an initial record, right, in db.json. Now I want to fetch this. And I have mentioned GraphQL depends on schemas, right? So this left hand side, you can find the document explorer. Here you can see two main operations I have mentioned: query for fetching data, mutation for updating the data. Okay. So first I want to fetch the data. For fetching data, we need schema. Why we need schema? You will understand now. If you expand it, here there are some schema. All fruits, okay, underscore all meta fruits. So these are the method names, okay, at the server. Automatically, the method names are called as resolvers in GraphQL, okay. Those are generated as a schema because we are going to use these names inside of the query operation or a command that we are going to create here. Okay, so if I want to fetch all the records from the server, I need to use this method. Okay, for that, how we have to create means first query. You will get intelligence by default. No need to worry. Everything will be provided by this tool. Query and open flower brackets. Okay. Query represents a request. This is a query command. Means I want to read the data. Okay. Inside of it, since I want to get all the data from the server, right? I have to use this method name. So if you type like all fruits, see, automatically came. That is the beauty of this tool. And again, open brackets. So there are some input parameters. Okay, I don't want filters right now, like any pagination or sorting or any filters. I don't want to do right now. Okay, but I want simply all data. So just ignore the filters. And now in my object, what are the properties I have? ID, name, quantity, price, right? So whatever properties we want to return from the response, all those things must be added here. Okay. Query, no need to give any commas. Okay. This is separate syntax. This is called GraphQL schema syntax. Okay. Name, price. Okay. So what I am doing, query that represents fetch, which resolver method, all fruits resolver method. Okay. So this name is nothing but this name, method name. From the schema only we have to add this name. This is not a random name. Okay. If so, here I am expecting these are the properties from the server. So now run this button. See, I got my data. ID, quantity, name, mango. This is the initial data that was in my JS file. Okay. Like that, you can get the data very easily. If you want only ID in the response, you can provide only that property name itself, nothing else. Then it will return only ID. If you want name, it will return ID and name like that. This is the beauty of GraphQL. Whatever response we want, we can send as a request. Okay. So this is nothing but getting. Okay. Now let me show one more example for creating a new record at the GraphQL server. For that, click on the schema and click on the mutations. Let me open one more. So open one more tab. Here I am going to do the mutation. Mutation contains creating, updating, deleting. So for this demo, for our understanding, I will do one create operation. Means I will insert one record at the server. So here for query, we have used query keyword, right? Same way for mutation, you can give mutation. The intelligence automatically came and open the braces. Okay. And click on the schema under the mutation. And here there are more than around four methods are there. Four resolvers are there. I want to use this method for inserting a new record, single record. Okay. This method is for inserting multiple records. This method is for update and this method is for delete. So I want to use this method. So what I will do here, we have to use the name of the resolver, that is create fruit. Okay. No need to worry. Everything intelligence will give us, and open the brackets. But here for saving, we must pass the data. So what are the input it contains? Name, quantity, price, right? So same property names you can give here, but you have to open the circular braces after the resolver method name. Okay, and here if you enter space, you can get all these input parameters names like name, quantity, okay, name, okay, along with name. Here string and exclamatory you are seeing, right? That means non-nullable string. We have to define the type also. But here we cannot define type directly. We have to use the variable. Okay. So to create a variable, we have to use dollar. Use same name. This name only use, or you can use any other name as well. Okay. Dollar, but it must be prefixed with dollar. Okay, comma, quantity, same way. Okay, I'm going to use same name by prefixing the quantity. Okay, and next one, price, dollar price. But here they are string int, right? But we have given some variable. So what is this variable type? We have to define here as well. That we can do here. After the mutation, open circular braces. Okay. So here you have to define the type for those variables. Okay. So this type exactly we have to write here. These types are GraphQL types. Okay. Non-nullable string. Exclamatory. If the type end with exclamatory, that means non-nullable. Okay. And next, what is my another variable name? Quantity, right? Paste it here. And its type is integer, capital I, N, T, exclamatory. You can see here. Exactly these types I have to give here. Next type of variable, price. Okay. So price also int, capital I, N, T, exclamatory. Okay. And it should be separated with colon. And these are variables, right? To these variables, we have to pass our data. So where we have to define means, if you see bottom query variables, click on it. See, one window is open. Here, open a flower brackets, one object. If you enter control space, automatically intelligence will show what are the variable names. Okay. First before creating variable names here, let's also define the uh, what res uh, expected output inside of the create, just like query. Okay, so I want ID in the response, need to give comma, name, quantity, price. Okay, now here let's try to give the get the variable name. See, name, quantity, price. These are names are nothing but dollar prefix in names. Okay, if you want for testing, I will change like test and this to test. Okay, now if you come here and control space, see test. So this variable name must be defined here. Okay, so let me revert back to name. Okay, so it will change now. It will come back again name. So I want to add apples. Okay, new fruit and quantity 5. Okay, and price uh, some $100. Okay, so this is my new record. I want to post it. Okay, so this content will be replaced into these placeholders just like a method. Okay, so the mutation operation for creating the record looks like this. the entire this query we created from this semantics, right? So if I click on run button, see, I got response with ID 2 that represents record is created at the server. If you have any doubt, come to this old window and run again. See, my newly created record also coming here. That means we have successfully saved our new record here. Okay, like this we can play for understanding the GraphQL endpoint using this window. Okay, so we have set up our GraphQL JSON server, right? Now thing is copy this URL and open the GraphQL module in our Angular application. Here I have mentioned, right? We haven't provided the URL. Paste it over here. Okay. So whenever we are going to invoke the GraphQL, this URL will be used automatically by the predefined methods of the Angular Apollo for invoking the HTTP call. Okay. And next we are going to do one read operation, means fetching data and binding them to UI, and we show the data onto the our Angular application, okay, by consuming the GraphQL endpoint. Okay, so fetching means a query operation we are going to implement. Okay, GraphQL query operation. Now let's try to implement the read operation, means fetching the data from the GraphQL endpoint and try to bind it to our UI. Okay, so first let's create a module. So in that module, I will contain all the child components for my CRUD operations. Okay, so first let's create the modules. So command is like ng generate module, okay, and name of the module. Since I am going to deal with fruits, right, I'm going to name it like fruits module. And along with the fruit module, I want to create the routing module as well. So give flag like hyphen routing. Okay, create. Okay, here you can see a fruit module and a fruit routing module files are created. Once let me go to my folder structure, and inside of the src app folder, you can see a new folder, nothing but a new module. Okay, and my module files. Okay, so now let me add lazy loading in my sample. For that, go to app module, app routing module. Okay, here let's configure the module. Okay, so path is like empty strings represent the home path. Okay, and here I want to load the my fruit component. Okay, so you have to use the property like load children. Okay, and it's going to take a arrow function import, and here pass our fruits module. Okay, that's it. So it's represent the lazy loading. Now let's create a child module inside of the, sorry, child component inside of my fruit module. So my child component name is home. So in this home component, I am going to render the content that fetches from the GraphQL endpoint. Okay, first let's create the home component. Okay, so command is like ng generate component and name of the component. First, where I want to create inside of the fruits module. So specify the folder path fruits. And next, my component name. My component name is home. Okay, and I don't want to create any test files. So I can give a flag like it tests. Okay, here you can see my home component files are created. Okay, let me show the folder structure inside of the fruits. Now I have component like home. Okay. Now go to the fruits routing module. Okay. Let's add the routing at module level. Okay. So I have to go to fruit routing module here. Path empty represents home path and which component that needs to be loaded. So that is home component. Okay. Now, if we go to our db.js file, this is the JSON structure we are going to get in our GraphQL endpoint, right? So let's create a response model inside of the fruits module. Okay. So for that, I can use command like ng generate. Okay. And module like, sorry, I can use interface inside of the fruits folder, right? And name of my model, I will name it like fruits only. Okay. So file got created. I go to fruit.ts. Okay. This is my interface. Okay. So I just want to create the properties inside of this. Okay. Number, string, number, number. Okay. So I have created the fruits module and I want to create the query operation command to use it inside of my home component. We know how to create the GraphQL query operation, right? So if I go to browser, here you can see my GraphQL development tool. Okay, here we know how to create a query. So first we have to check the schema. So query schema, I want to fetch all the data. That means I have to use the all fruits resolver method. So first thing is query. Okay, and next thing is all fruits I want to invoke. Inside of it, I want properties, all properties. Okay, ID, name, quantity, and then uh, price. Okay, so this is my query. I have to use this query exactly like this query command. So I want to store it somewhere. For that, let me create a file. Okay, so ng generate. I'm going to create a class. Okay, inside of the fruits module means fruits folder. I want a new folder like GQL, and inside of it, I want to create a file like fruits hyphen query.ts. Okay, so all GraphQL query operation commands I am going to add in this file. Okay, no need extension and hyphen hyphen keep test. Okay, okay, file got created. Let's go to fruit query file. I don't want to use any classes. I just export constants as a constants from here. Okay, export. Okay, get fruits. Okay, this is my constant name, and inside of it, in this constant, I have to store the my query we just created. But I cannot directly store it like a string. For that, it should be encapsulated around GQL. So that's loads from Apollo slash Angular. And now open Pactics. Okay. So it represents some kind of dynamic value. Okay. Nothing but our query command. Copy this. We know if you run it, we will get all the data, right? So copy this query command, paste it here inside of the backticks. Okay. Now go to home component.ts file. We need to invoke the API call, right? So it should be loaded when the component is loaded. That means API call must be happened inside of the ng on init method. Okay, for that we need to inject a service like private Apollo and service is Apollo. Okay, so this Apollo loads from Apollo-Angular library. Okay, now I can use this. Okay, this dot. So all the data, whatever it's coming from the API, I want to store it in a variable, like observable variable. So name a variable like fruits and prefix with postfix with dollar that represents the variable is a observable, just a convention. Okay, and its type is observable of fruits array or fruits array. Okay, initially we have to assign some empty array. So I have to use, since it is observable, right, to assign MC you can use of operator from the RSJX. Okay, and in open braces inside of it assign the array, empty array. Okay, now to this all fruits property I will assign this dot Apollo. Okay, so Apollo contains some predefined methods. Okay, in that for querying we have to use watch query. Okay, and so here it is better to give the type of watch query. So how we have to define means, by default data will be the root, and inside of it what is the data type? Data type will be all fruits, and all fruits type will be the array of fruits, right? So this type must be defined. So for that what I will do, data will be object, right? Object, and what property data it contains? All fruits. Okay, because this variable name comes from this resolver method. Okay, whatever name here is given, that will come, unless if you give a alias name in the request, that is a different concept. I am not going to show here. Okay, so by default the name here we used will be written as a response. So that name here, and what it is, it giving array of fruits. So I have to define like fruits, array of fruits. Okay, so that is fine. And now query. So in the watch query method, open bracket, and it contains object, insert the object, and object contains some properties like query. To this query, okay, to this query property we have to pass our constant, get fruits constant. Okay, so go to home component and pass it and import the namespace. Okay, and next, since it is always watching query, right, it returns like on value changes. Okay, so pipe. Okay, here I am going to map with I am going to fetch the data results. So map that loads from ngrx. Okay, inside of it use a arrow function. Okay, read response as a result. So that result is nothing but the result dot data. Okay, so this data property nothing but this data property. Okay, and what it will contains, it will contains all fruits, so return it. Okay, so what we are doing, we are using Apollo service and it contains watch query. Okay, and we have defined the type of output it's going to return. Okay, and here we have to pass our query operator command constant. Okay, we have to listen for value changes. Once the API is successful, data is mapped and filtered and returned to this variable. Okay, since this is observable, once the data it receives, if we use this variable in the HTML, it will bind the data. Okay, so now go to home component.html. Now here, let's add the table and try to bind our response to the table. For that, go to bootstrap. Okay, here in the bootstrap, go for table component. So in the content, you can see the table. Go to tables, okay, and copy some random table, okay, with some data. Let me copy this table HTML. Okay, so add some container div. Okay, and let me add the table here and headers like ID, name, quantity, price. Okay, and anyway we are going to loop the data. Let's remove the static tiers. Single tier is enough. Okay, so on that single tier, char ng for, okay, let item of. So what is our variable? All fruits dollar. Since it is a observable, we should use async pipe. Okay, so now I can bind here data item dot id, item dot name, and item dot quantity, and sorry, item dot price. Okay, so we are good. I think you have to run both GraphQL server and your Angular application. Okay, now let's go to browser and access my Angular application localhost 4200. Okay, table is coming and data is also binding. See data. So if I inspect element for developer tools, okay, go to network calls. Okay, once reload again, I want to show the HTTP call. So here is our HTTP call. Okay, local 3000. Okay, which is nothing but our GraphQL endpoint. And if you see the payload, see my query. What is this? This is the query, nothing but we have added, right? This one, get fruits constant. And this one we are passing here to this query property. So that is like a string, it is passing to the GraphQL server. So GraphQL server can understand this GraphQL syntax. Okay. If you hover on this, see, it is nicely showing what is the object. Okay. And in the response, you can see in the preview, you can see the response data. Inside of data, another property name that is all fruits. And inside of it, it contains my data. And that data is binding here. Okay. That means we have successfully completed the read operation. Next, we are going to do some create operation, means using mutate command. We are trying to save a item at the server using the GraphQL endpoint. Okay. Now to implement the create operation, let me create a component inside of fruits module like add component. Okay. So command will be ng generate component, and where I want to create inside of the fruits module, right? Fruits folder and name of my component add, and I don't want to generate any test files. Okay, add component created. Now let's add the routing for add component inside of the fruit routing module. Okay, go to fruit routing module. Here add a new route. Add a new route. Here 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 add a new route. Okay, path. Let's add path like add. Okay, and the component add component, right? Add component. Now let's prepare the mutation command for saving a record into the server. So here, let's try to create the mutation command. Remove everything and mutation, the root, right? And click on schema for mutation. And for inserting single record, I have to use this, okay? Like create fruit. So create fruit, okay? And it takes some inputs like name, quantity, and price, right? So property and this name should be given the variable type. You can give any variable type, okay? If dollar is prefix, that is variable name, okay? You can give any name here, but what I will do, I will give same name as Naveen, like that, okay? Name and quantity and variable name will be quantity, say, same name, but it is not mandatory. And next input parameter, price. So intelligence will automatically shows you what are the input parameters for the particular resolver, okay? And dollar price. And I have also shown you previously for this variable, we have to define the types. Actually, here for method, here types are there, right? Capital string, exclamatory, int exclamatory. So those are GraphQL types. Exclamatory means non-nullable string, non-nullable integer. Okay. To define them, here open circular braces. Okay. And what is our variable name? Name. And what its type here? String. Okay. And it is non-nullable. Okay. And what is our another variable? Quantity. Okay. And its type is integer, capital I. You can check in the syntax types, okay? And another thing is price. So price, integer, non-nullable, okay? And what are the properties you want to get in the response? I want all of them. So I can define all of them because this method return type is fruit, right? So whatever the properties there in the fruit, we can add here, ID, name, intelligence will automatically shows you, okay? Price. But data must be passed to these variables, right? So click on the below window where query variable, okay? And here open an object and control space or intelligence automatically shows you. Okay, my new fruit is like apples, okay? And the quantity 5, okay? And the price some 300 bucks, okay? So this is how we have to create a mutation command for creating. So we have to use this mutation command in our Angular application. Okay. For queries, we have create a file like fruit query file, right? So for mutations, let's create a one more file. Okay. So ng generate class instead of fruits folder, inside of GQL folder. My file name is like fruits hyphen mutation. Okay. Hyphen skip. Yes. Okay. File got created. So let's get the fruit mutation file, remove this and export a constant like create fruit. Okay. And we know GraphQL command should be enclosed in GQL that loads from Angular, Apollo Angular. Okay. Open backticks and copy this entire thing and paste it over here. Okay. Now let's try to Add small form in the add component.html file. So go to add component.html file. Okay, remove this container. Okay, and add a legend like create item, some heading. Okay, and now I want four text fields or three, one for name, quantity, and price. Okay, for that, let's go to Bootstrap. And in the Bootstrap, go for forms and go for overview. Okay, here let me copy this first one. Okay, let's add it here. I don't want any error message. Okay, so let's duplicate it two more times. Okay, now it will be text name, paste it for ID. Okay, and it is for fruit name. Its type will be text. And next, quantity, quantity, and it should be a number. And next, price, price, okay, and it is also a number, txt price. Okay, and I want to create a form model in TS file so that using ng model I can bind to the HTML. So go to add component.ts file. Here let me declare a variable like fruit form of type fruits. Okay, initial values it should be equal to, okay, and the initial value of id is 0. Empty, empty, price 0, quantity 0. Okay, this is my form model, and let's use ng bind on the input fields. Sorry, ng model, and fruit form dot name. Okay, since we are using ng model, right? So in the form module, we have to import the forms module. Go to form module. So sorry, fruit module. Here, let's register the forms module. Okay. Now go to add component.html, and what is the variable name? Go to add component.ts file. Copy the name. Okay. So same way we have to add it for other input fields as well. So that is name, and this should be quantity, and next one should be price. Price. Okay. And let me add a button. So on button click, I want to submit the form. So button in primary. Okay. Create, and let's define a click event. Click some create method. Okay, let's define a create method in add component.ts file. So here we have to define add component.ts file. Okay, so in this method, I have to post my form data to the GraphQL endpoint. Okay, to do that, we know we have to inject the Apollo service. So private read only, sorry, private Apollo Apollo. Okay, now this dot Apollo dot. Now we have to use a method like mutate. Okay, so here my resolver method is create fruit, right? That will be written as a response property inside of the data. So what I can do, I can define the type here for mutate for data object like uh, copy this create fruit name. Same will be come from the response, okay? And its type is fruits. So whatever fruit data is saved, that will be written as this type, okay? And open braces and brackets. Here for mutation, we have to pass our mutation command, that is create fruit, okay? And we know we have to pass variables, right? So to pass variables, here there will be a one more property like variables, okay? And their names like name, quantity, and price. Name, so that will come fruits form, okay? Let's assign the form data here to the variable names. Okay, next same names, quantity. So I'm passing my form data to GraphQL variable. Okay, okay. So it will generally return data object, right? So and I just want to navigate back to once save. I just want to navigate back to my home component. Okay. For that we have to inject the router service private router. Okay. This dot router dot navigate and I want to go to home component. Okay. So once save, I want to navigate back to home component. Now let me add a add button in home component.html. So create a row, some margin top, and call md for dot offset md4. I want to button in the middle. Okay. Now to this, let me add anchor tag. Okay, and router link. I can directly define add route. Okay, and create a new item. And I want to display it like a button, so add button classes. Okay, that should work. Now let's go to our web page. I got an add button. If I click on it, I navigate to create form. So let me create a new fruit like apples, quantity 5, price 300, Let's open developer tool to check the network call. Okay, click on create. See, I navigated to home page, but record is not showing. Okay, it won't show. Why? I will explain. But let's check the call API call. If you observe here you can see our mutation object, and here the variables or payload. And in the preview, you can see the response with the ID and everything. But here we navigate back to our home page, but our API call not invoked. In component ng on it, API call is not invoked. That is because this watch query by default maintains cache. Okay. If the data is already existed in the cache, in-memory cache store, it won't invoke the API call. Okay. So if you want to avoid this in-memory cache, one way is you can use policy, fetch policy, we can use, and here you can specify like no cache. Then what will happen? Always, it won't store in memory, it always go for network call. Okay, let's check again. Okay, now page reloaded. My item is came. Let me create new one and check the network calls. Okay, clear it. Let me add one more fruit like the photos. Okay, and let me try to create it. See, immediately I got. If I check the network calls, API call is invoked. Get API call. After entering into the home component, API call is invoked. So adding policy is one process. Okay. If you don't want to uh, avoid in-memory cache, means if you want to use the benefit of in-memory cache, then we have to update the in-memory cache state. Okay. So let me show you that. Okay. For that, we have to go for add component itself. Here, along with variable and mutation, there is one more property like update. Okay, this contains a arrow function. Okay, and it has variables like store, and second variable will be the response of the this mutation API call. Okay, now this store will give the access for our in-memory cache. Okay, so now what I will do, if data of create fruit. Okay, if the response is coming from the API, after saving only this method gets executed. Okay, after executing this method, then subscribe will be executed. Okay, after API completion, once response came to the our application, update method gets executed. After the update method completion, method gets executed. Okay, so I'm checking just so this data is nothing but the response data. Okay, so in that we will have a create property, which is nothing but a fruit type. Okay, we are checking our newly created record is exist or not. Okay, now we have to fetch all the existing data from the in-memory cache store. Okay, how we can get means where let me store all existing data to this variable. Okay, I'm going to use store. Okay, dot read query. So here you can see Apollo cache. This is for reading the cache. Okay. Store.read query is a read in the cache. It is almost work like a mutate or query watch query methods of the Apollo instance. But this read query is for not invoking the API call. This is for calling the store. Okay. And here we just use as it is how we call the uh, watch query in home component, just like here we called, right? Passing this get fruits. So same command can use it for cache also. Okay. So that means go to add component.ts. Here I can define it like type, just like home component type, watch query type. Okay. What its type, array of fruits. Okay. Okay. And open braces and open brackets. Home component is passing get query, right? Same. Read query also contains query property, and to that I am going to use this get fruit constant. This query I want to pass to cache. Okay, so here we pass that one. Okay, import the namespace. So this query, what it will do? It fetches the based on the query. It fetches the all data from the in-memory cache. Okay, now I got all data from the in-memory cache. Let's check if the data exists or not. All data and all data dot all fruits dot length greater than 0. Okay. Then what I want to do, let me don't use directly cache memory. Let me create a one more variable. Okay. Where new data equal to data fruits array type and create a array and pass the all data dot all fruits. Okay, now I got all my in-memory store into this variable. Now let me push the new record, this create fruit, into this new data. Okay, so new do dot unshift will add the my newly created record on the top of the list in cache. Okay, so data dot create fruit. Okay, now this data is updated. Again, this data need to be stored back to the in-memory cache. Okay, just like mutation, but it won't invoke any API call, just save the data into the in-memory cache. For that we can use store dot write query. Okay, here it almost uses same query for writing also, but additionally we have to pass the data. That data is nothing but array of fruits. Okay, so how we have to pass? We have to pass like this using this property only. New. Why I am using same query? You should use whatever the get query in home component.ts. Get query data type is this, right? Because as it is object is stored directly into the in-memory cache. That's why this is mandatory to define the type. Okay. Now go to add component.ts. Yeah. This line of code will update the store state. Let's check by adding one more item. Okay. So let's refresh. We have 3 records, and let me clear the network call. Now if you save, okay, record will be saved and we will navigate to home component, but API call will not invoke because we removed the fetch policy equal to non-cache. That property is removed now. So data will be loaded from the store. But before coming to the home component, in add component, what we did, we use update method. In that update method, we are updated the in-memory cache store. Okay, so by using this, we will use the benefit of the in-memory store of the GraphQL. So let me add a new item, something like pineapple 4 and 250. So click on create. See, my record is coming on top, and if I check network, only one call, that is mutation call. You can check in payload. There is no get call. That means all the data is updated in the store and that data is loaded here. Okay. So this is how in-memory cache works in GraphQL. Next, we are going to deal with update operation. Now let's try to implement the update operation. So let's create a new component in the fruits module like edit component. Okay. Command is like ng generate component inside of the fruits module, right? So specify the folder and the name of the component, edit. Okay. I don't want any spec files. Okay. Edit component file successfully got created. Okay. Now let's define the route for the edit component in the fruit routing module. Okay. Path edit. So here I want to pass some dynamic value also. Dynamic value here is nothing but the item that I want to edit, right? So for creating the dynamic value in the route, you can specify with colon and the ID. So this will be the dynamic value, okay? And component specify like edit component. Edit component is almost similar to the add component. So let's copy the entire HTML from the add component.html to edit component.html. So go to add component.html, copy, and now go to edit component.html, paste it over here. Okay, let's change like update a item and button will be update and a new method for update. Okay, so create a empty method in the edit component and method name is update. Okay, and what are the things we have to fix? We have to have the fruit form. Okay, we can directly copy it from the add component.ts file. Okay, edit component.ts file. So here import the namespace. Now warnings are gone in the edit component.html. So now the thing is, whenever our form is loaded, edit form loads, we want to display the item that we want to edit, right? So that means we want to read the data from the server based on the ID. Okay, let's frame the query command for fetching the item based on ID. Okay, now come to our development tool for GraphQL. Let's create the query command to fetch the record by ID. Okay, we know we have to use query keyword. Okay, and check for the schema for the queries. So if you observe here, all fruits we previously used to read all the data from the server, right? Same resolver can be used for filtering also because all these input properties are non-nullable. Sorry, nullable. Okay, if a type prefixed with exclamation, then that is non-nullable. If it is not prefixed, all those are nullable. That's why we have able to read all the data without passing any filter in our read operation. Okay, same way now what I can do, I can use the filter, one of the input parameter filter I can use because instead of filter we have lot of options like we can filter by array of IDs, filter by individual ID, filter by name, filter by quantity, filter by price. I simply use filter by ID. Okay, so for that all fruits, okay, open braces, I want to use filter and what is its type, fruits, right? But we have to create the variable name here. So what I will name, fruit filter, any name you can give. Okay, and to this fruit filter we have to define the actual GraphQL type, that is fruit filter. Here we have, right, this fruit filter graph, fruit filter type we have to define. So copy this, open braces here. Okay, variable and fruit filter. Okay, this is the type, nothing but our GraphQL exact type. Okay, and in the response, I want ID, name, quantity, and price. Okay, now we have to pass the data to this variable, right? Go to query window variable and open object and fruit filter. Okay, inside of this fruit filter variable, we have we have to use ID. Okay, so ID equal to any value, ID record ID value. Okay, so like this, we have to prepare the filter query and we have to use it in our application. Copy this query command and go to our fruit query TS. Okay, export const fruits by ID. Okay, GQL and copy it inside of it. Okay, now go to our edit component.ts. Let's create a method like get by ID. Okay, and this method will have input parameter our ID, private Apollo. Okay, now we can use this dot Apollo dot. So watch query, and we know how to define the type. The type is nothing but, so where is our query? This one. Resolver method will be comes as a type. We know that, right? So edit component, define the data type, and it will be single fruit. I am going to get, right, but it always returns array of data, but we will get only one record. So that's why we have to use the array. Okay, and define our query, that is fruits by ID. Okay, and it contains variables, right? So that variable is contains this, right, variable name. It contains internally this, so define it as well. Okay, and inside of it, it contains ID, right? Since I am inputting ID, same name, right? So I can directly give like this instead of specifying a key value, but directly you can give the key and value are same names. Okay, so here I am passing my ID to item to edit to this variable. Okay, dot value changes dot subscribe. Okay, and data. Okay, now what I can do, I can populate the response to the form data, right? So where fruit by ID and data dot all fruits of 0, first index, first item I want. Okay, then this dot fruit form equal to fruit ID, fruit by ID dot ID, name, fruit by ID name, quantity, price, Okay, so that's it. Our get by ID query. What we are doing, we are just uh, invoking the GraphQL endpoint to read item by ID. Okay, but we need to get this ID from our route, right? For that, we have to inject one more service like private route activated route. Okay, so inside of the ng on it, what I can do means this dot route dot params map dot subscribe. Okay, and params and where id equal to number params dot get, and here we have to specify the our URL template dynamic text. So go to fruit routing module. So this is the dynamic replaceable field, right? So copy the ID and go to edit component and paste it. Okay, then simply call our this dot get by ID so that form gets populated. Let's test it whether it is coming or not. Okay, to test it we should have a edit button, right? So go to home component.ts HTML. Okay, here add one more th like actions and a new td and an anchor tag edit. Okay, and I will show like a button and router link, dynamic router link, right? ID value should be dynamic. So what I will do, first parameter will be the first part of the param edit and second will be our ID. So item dot ID. Okay, that's going to create the dynamic route, edit route. Okay, now go to our website. Okay, here is our edit button. Let's try to edit it. Open network calls. Okay, and click on edit button. Okay, and check the network call. You can see the network call for our query command filter by ID, and and we get the response, single response in the array. Okay, and our form is get populated. Now we have to work on the logic for updating the record. Okay, at both the server and local in-memory cache rate, because Apollo GraphQL uses local in-memory cache rate. Both we have to update it carefully. So inside of, so for update, we have to create one more mutation command, right? So go to schema and go to mutations. So here is the resolver method for updating the single record, right? So here let's create the mutation. So mutation. So name of the resolver update fruit, and it contains values like ID, and let me create a variable name like ID, name, name, quantity, quantity. Okay. Next, last value price, price. Okay. So for these things, I have to define the GraphQL type. So $ID. So what is your ID? Like capital ID, which is a JSON GraphQL ID and which is non-nullable. ID is mandatory for update. Okay. Next, name. So name is string. So capital S string. You can check here. Okay. Next, quantity. So quantity variable int. Next, price. price int. Okay, in the response it is returning entire fruit data, so I can expect name, quantity, and price. Okay, this is how we have to prepare the query for mutation command, and here we know we have to create variables like id, name, quantity. Okay, first let me copy this mutation. Okay, and go to my fruit mutation file. Okay, here export constant update fruit. Okay, encapsulate with GQL. Okay, so now go to our edit module, sorry, edit component, update method. Okay, now what I can do, I simply uses the create method in add components and I will modify it. Okay, to save some time. This entire method I am going to copy it in edit. Okay, I copied. So here the thing is we should call mutation method, that is fine, but here our response is not create fruit. Our response variable will be the update fruit. Okay, so as I did here. Okay, and change here also update fruit. Update fruit logic will be changed there. Okay, and here it is not mutation type is not create fruit, it will be a update fruit. Okay, and here variable id also required. Okay, or create id is not required, but here id required, fruit form dot id. Okay, so variables also completed. So we know that update is for updating the in memory cache. Okay, so here lot of logic we will reuse. So here we are going to use same read query only, and this query also same for fetching all data from the in memory cache. Okay, now what we will do, now new data equal to, first let's remove the existing data from the uh, records. Okay, for that what I can do, new data dot filter dot id not equal to data dot update dot id. Okay, so I'm just removing the old code for that id. Again I'm pushing it on the top, updated record data. Okay, and finally saving into the store, and we have to navigate back to our home component, so inject the router service. Okay, private router. Think we are done. Okay, now let's test it. Okay, let's go back and let's try to update quantity and price. Okay, quantity will be 7 and price will be some 650 bucks. Now let's try to update. So open network calls to see the update call. Click on update. See, data is immediately updated. It is now loading from the store. Okay, and here you can see the update call with our update fruit data. This is payload, sorry, payload is this one, mutation. We are passing all our variable data. Okay, and if you refresh also, same updated data coming, that means our data is successfully updated at GraphQL also. Okay, next we are going to do delete operation. Now let's think about delete operation. Okay, for that let's go to our browser for GraphQL tool where we can prepare our delete mutation command. Now click on mutation and here I can see a resolver method like remove fruit, and it is expecting ID as the input parameter, which is non-nullable, means mandatory field we have to pass. Okay, and it can return the entire deleted fruit in the response. Okay, let me prepare the mutation for it. So first we know mutation. Next, name of the resolver, that is remove fruit, and it has one input parameter like ID. Okay, so it is a dynamic value, right? We have to use variable, use same variable name. Okay, and then here we have to define the type of that variable is capital I, capital D, and exclamatory, which is a GraphQL type, and it is a scalar JSON ID type. And in the response, it's going to return full fruit model. But what I will do, I will just want ID as a response in it. Okay. So this is my query, sorry, command, mutation command. So now go to our fruit mutation file, and here let's add one more constant. Delete fruit. Okay. GQL backticks, paste here. Okay. So now what I will do, I won't create any separate component for delete operation within the home component itself. I am going to show a bootstrap model pop-up as a confirmation delete. So if user clicks on confirm delete, then I am going to invoke the GraphQL endpoint for removing the item at the server and the in memory cache as well. Okay. So to do that, go to home component.ts. Let's declare a variable like window. Why we declare a variable means we need to access from the window, because in the window we have access for our bootstrap instance. Okay, and let me create two uh, variables like delete model of any. To this delete model, I am going to uh, assign bootstrap model instance, sorry, bootstrap instance. Okay, and another variable to hold the item to delete. Okay, id to delete, and it will be a number. Okay, now inside of the ng on init, let me assign the bootstrap uh, instance to the delete model. Okay, so this dot delete model equal to new window dot bootstrap. Okay, dot model. So this is going to create instance of the model, and here in the model M will be the capital. Okay, and inside of it we have to pass the bootstrap model ID. So document dot get element by ID. Okay, we didn't added the bootstrap HTML till now. Let's go to bootstrap website, and in the components you can go for models. Okay, and copy this HTML. And in the home component.html, let's paste the HTML that related to bootstrap model. And here we will have an additional button. Let's remove it. And here let's add ID like delete model, any ID name, meaningful name. And now we have to give this name here, document.getElement by ID. Now what it will do, it will create an instance of model based on this document, this model HTML, and gives control to this variable. Means now this variable have control over the bootstrap model. Okay. Now let me create a method for opening the confirmation model like open confirmation model. Okay, so to this model, ID will be input, item to delete, and this dot ID to delete equal to ID, and I want to open the model. So this dot delete model dot show. So this method will pops up the model. Now this method should be called from the delete button in the home component at respect to item. So here next to the edit button, let's add one more button. Here no need to use anchor tag because it depends on button click. Okay, so delete class btn danger. Okay, now let's register the click event, and we have created a method, right? So open confirmation delete. Okay, and pass the item ID. Now let's do some changes in the bootstrap HTML, like title is like a delete confirmation, and inside of the body we can give like, are you sure to delete this item? Okay, and here close will be closed, and this will be save changes will be confirm delete. Okay, and let's add danger. Okay, let's test whether our delete confirmation pop-up is opening or not. Here we have delete button, right? So click on it. Now you get confirmation pop-up. If I click on close, pop-up will be closed. If I click on delete, for now nothing will happen. Now we have to add a logic for this click method for invoking the GraphQL endpoint to delete the item at the server. Okay. So for that, let's create a method like component.ds. Let's create a method like delete. Okay, and to this delete this dot apollo dot, and we know it will be the mutate, right? So what I will do, I will just copy the uh, logic we have already implemented in edit or add component, because we are going to do just minimum modification in that code. Okay, let me go to add component.ts, and let me copy this create logic inside of this create, and go to home component.ts, add it here. So this is a mutation method. Its type in the, since it is a mutation, that is correct, but its type is not create fruit. If you go to fruit mutation, here type is remove fruit. So copy it and come to home component.ts, replace it with remove fruit, and change it in couple of other areas as well. Okay, and here mutation command is not create fruit, that is like delete fruit. Okay, and here variable we require only id to delete item id. So this dot id to delete. Okay, and here update store to update the in-memory cache, which we required here as well. And this line of code is to fetch all the data from the in-memory cache store. And here we are getting, and here what I will do, new data equal to I'm going to filter and remove the item that was deleted at the server. Okay, so filter Other than the deleted items, I want to store it in the new data variable id not equal to data dot remove root dot id. Okay, and we are storing the new data into the in-memory cache store. Yeah, that's enough logic. And here we no need to navigate anywhere. We just want to close the bootstrap model pop-up for that. This dot delete model dot hide. Okay, that's going to closes the model, and we need to register this delete method into the confirm delete button on the bootstrap model. Okay, here click. Okay, delete method. Now check in the. Now I got delete also. Let me delete this second record and open the network call as well to check the delete API invocation. Click on confirm. The pop-up is deleted and from in-memory data is deleted. And if you check, our API call also successful for deleting remove root our command and preview. We are getting the ID as a deleted ID. If I reload also, I will get single record only because item is deleted at the server. Okay, so that's all about the uh, Angular 14 consuming GraphQL endpoint using Angular Apollo v3 library. I hope this video has delivered some useful information to you all. If you like my video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel. Soon we are going to meet with new videos. Until then, signing off.